Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the main tactical themes that contributed to Arsenal's 2-0 loss at PSV. So in today's video, first we're going to focus on Arsenal's structure, then we'll shift to PSV's front line, and lastly we'll focus on the second half adjustments that both managers made. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, Arsenal were unchanged in regards to their shape, but Fabio Vieira did start on the right of their front line, and Tierney moved back into a left-back role with Tomiyasu shifting towards the right. PSV played in a 4-2-3-1, but without a traditional striker, and that's where you saw Xavi Simons playing ahead of Veerman, and they operated with two wide direct players in El Ghazi and Gakpo. In many scenarios, both sides encountered the same issues in terms of how they were creating chances, and they also encountered the same issues in terms of the build-up because they pressed in a similar manner. In regards to Arsenal, they pressed with Nketiah and Martinelli pushing forward to the center backs, with Martinelli blocking off the passing lane into the fullback, and then Fabio Vieira would close down the left back. The left 3v3 in that midfield zone with Odegaard and Saka pushing forward to close down Sangare and Gutierrez, and then Lokonga would track the movement of Veerman. If there was any case where Martinelli was bypassed, you'd see Tierney pushing forward to close down the right back, and Holding would shift across to deal with El Ghazi. Whereas the same thing was applicable for PSV, with Xavi Simons and Veerman pushing forward to close down the center backs, but Veerman was tasked with Lokonga, and he would look to close down Saliba and block off the passing lane in towards Lokonga, but there were situations where Arsenal were capable of bypassing Veerman to get Lokonga on the ball, or simply look to play the ball in towards Odegaard or Xhaka dropping off deeper, and then looking to play the ball first time in towards Lokonga as Veerman wouldn't track back in time. In this example, you have Veerman blocking off the passing lane into Lokonga, but Saliba finds Odegaard dropping in towards his own half and pulling away Gutierrez, and he drops the ball off into the path of Lokonga as Veerman doesn't track his movement, and from there, even though Gutierrez does step, Lokonga easily drifts by him, and now he has an unmarked Odegaard to play the ball into. The reason being was that El Ghazi and Gakpo would close down Tierney and Tomiyasu, and then Sangare and Gutierrez were pushing forward to deal with the threat of Odegaard and Xhaka dropping off deeper. Ultimately, the biggest issue that both sides encountered in terms of bypassing the opposing side's press was that when they looked to play balls in towards nketiah or Xavi Simons, both players struggled to deal with the center back. Holding, Saliba and Lokonga did a very good job of winning aerial duels against Xavi Simons and brushing him off the ball when they stuck tight towards him, and the same thing was applicable to Nketiah throughout the game as he struggled to get the better of the PSV center backs, and they often brushed him off the ball on several occasions, whether it be from an aerial duel or when he was looking to receive the ball to feet. In many cases, Arsenal did shift into more of a 3-2-5, so that did see Tierney attempting to drift laterally in towards that midfield zone to get on the ball, but in those situations when he did look to push in towards that midfield zone, that's where you would see Sangare stepping forward to apply pressure and close him down. In terms of the roles of the attacking players, there were no significant changes. Martinelli was hugging the touchline on the left, and Nketiah was looking to drop off deeper to receive the ball in the gap of Sangare and Gutierrez, and that's where he was closed down tightly by the center backs. And then Xhaka and Odegaard were looking to push forward higher up the pitch, but were closed down and tracked by Gutierrez and Sangare. The only real avenue that Arsenal did enjoy success is when Fabio Vieira received the ball on the touchline, and from there he would look to run at max, cut in centrally on towards his left foot, and he would switch play out to Martinelli or Tierney down the left touchline, or look to find Nketiah's runs in towards the right half space to attempt to play him in behind the center back. On the rare overlapping Tomiyasu run, Fabio Vieira picks out Nketiah's run across the center back, but from this position he gets a first time effort tamely at the keeper. Outside of Fabio Vieira's threat, there was no real overlapping runs from Tomiyasu, and that was largely down to the threat of Gakpo in transition. And then over on the left-hand side, El Ghazi did a very good job of protecting his fullback, and Martinelli struggled to have an impact down that left touchline, and there was no real significant movement from Xhaka or Tierney due to Sangare tracking the movement of Xhaka and El Ghazi tracking the movement of the wide player looking to push forward. Meanwhile, if you shift to PSV, the manner in which they were able to trouble the Arsenal backline was down to their front line. Xavi Simons, like we stated earlier, was struggling to get the better of the center backs, but it was when he dropped off deeper in towards the midfield zone and pockets of space away from the center backs that he was capable of having an impact. The reason being was that when you look at their front line, Gakpo was constantly looking to make runs in behind Tomiyasu or run in the gaps between Tomiyasu and Saliba. And if Xavi Simons received the ball in those pockets of space between the lines, neither Holding or Saliba were stepping forward, and that allowed him to run at the center backs to either have a shot on goal or look to play in the runt of his wide players breaking him behind. Here you see Sangare recovering possession in the midfield zone, and he instantly looks to play it into Xavi Simons, who receives it ahead of Saliba and is now free to break forward. That results in Saliba not getting tight towards him, and now he can slide the ball wide to El Ghazi, and he has Gakpo, who's also being tracked by Tomiyasu. That ultimately results in none of the center backs stepping forward, and Simons carries the ball towards the penalty area before Odegaard could step in, and he fires a low effort on goal that Ramsdale pushes away. The other avenue in which PSV were capable of harming that Arsenal backline was through the movement of El Ghazi, where Gakpo was consistently looking to make runs in behind. El Ghazi was checking in towards the ball to receive it in the midfield zone or in a narrow pocket of space. He'd pull away Tierney, and from there he would be looking to play in the runs in behind the Arsenal backline, or simply link play with Xavi Simons or Gakpo to get them into legitimate goal scoring positions. Here you see Veerman in his own third dragging away Lokonga, and El Ghazi checking in towards the ball to drag away Tierney. When El Ghazi receives it, that's when Veerman runs off Lokonga to receive the square ball from El Ghazi, and that ignites a break where you see Xavi Simons making a run from deep in between Holding and Saliba, and Gakpo running off Saliba's shoulder, but Gakpo runs offside to halt the attack. However, in the second half, Van Nistelrooy was more proactive in comparison to Arteta, and he looked to solve his issue up front by bringing on Luuk de Jong to deal with the center backs, and then pushing Xavi Simons towards the right-hand side. In the early stages of that period, it looked like Xavi Simons may have an issue tracking back Tierney, who was consistently pushing forward in the opening 5 minutes to get into the final third, and from there he was getting into positions where Arsenal could create. But as that half continued, you witnessed Xavi Simons dropping off a bit deeper to protect his fullback, and then Tierney was incapable of overloading that left-hand side. In those situations that Xavi Simons didn't drop back deeper, it was Sangare who was forced to shift across laterally to provide the protection while ensuring that Xhaka couldn't get the ball in the midfield zone. The reason why De Jong's introduction was so impactful was that now he was capable of challenging the two center backs aerially to win the ball, and he was simply doing a very good job at the very least of applying pressure towards them to make it difficult. From there, Xavi Simons was now having an impact in the game by making runs across Tierney, and he was getting in behind him. In this example, you witness a reoccurring theme from the opening half with Xavi Simons dragging away Tierney into a midfield zone. He's not closed down by Xhaka or Tierney, and it gives him time to turn and locate Gakpo running off Tomiyasu, and that results in Xavi Simons splitting Saliba and Tomiyasu, placing Gakpo in this position where he should beat the keeper, but he fires his effort wide. And then Luuk de Jong was also receiving the ball freely in behind Lokonga and Xhaka, and from there you now have two runners in Xavi Simons and Gakpo looking to break in behind the Arsenal backline, and then the aerial threat and presence of Luuk de Jong that presented the center back several issues. To no surprise, de Jong played a key factor in both PSV goals by using his aerial and physical presence to shake off the backline. In the opening goal, you witnessed him receiving the ball between the lines, and he did a very good job of shielding and protecting it from Holding, and from there he located the run of Veerman running off of Lokonga from a deeper midfield position. He carried the ball towards the penalty area, and then played in Veerman breaking in towards the box, and from that position you witnessed the central attacking midfielder putting PSV ahead. And then as that half continued on two separate occasions, it was de Jong getting the better of Arsenal's set-piece defending, both from a corner kick from Gakpo where he was capable of rising high, and Ramsdale did make a mistake which allowed him to not a free header beyond the keeper. And then when Arsenal looked to defend zonally from their penalty area, he peeled around the back post and no Arsenal player tracked his movement, and from that position ahead of the 6-yard area he should have killed off the game. So as you can see, while individual defensive mistakes proved costly in both goals conceded, Arsenal's 3-2-5 provided minimal threats in the final third, whereas Arteta failed to cope with PSV's adjustment to their attack.